Yo, what is up, everyone? Back here with another video. Today we're going to be doing a restricted pair tier list, and I'm gonna be real. I have tried to record this video like 5 times, and I have not liked how it's come out all 5 times. So this one, if I'm posting it, obviously I'll be happy with like how it came out. Just shows you guys like I definitely don't post videos I think are bad. I had to re-record this a couple times mostly because I didn't like how I was covering a bunch of like random pairs that like didn't matter. I had actually watched James' Beck video for some reference. He rated all the restricted pairs. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I have the mental dexterity to do that. And also too, I just don't think like there are some pairs worth talking about. So we're gonna simplify the list a little bit. I'm only gonna list pairs that I think actually matter like whatsoever. I'm not even gonna touch on pairs that I think are just useless or like not good. I don't even like I'm not even like sure I'm gonna use the F tier that much. F tier is probably gonna be reserved for like Pokemon that I think like they've done well, but like only because of the player. So like for example, Dialga, like Cali Rex, like there's like one cut with it, but I don't think it's a particularly amazing pair, right? But yeah. So we're gonna be going through all of it, and then we'll be kind of going from there. So yeah. So, first off, looking through the rest, Cali Rex Groudon's the first one I want to touch on. Cali Rex Groudon's actually a really decent archetype. I feel like because of the Sun partners, you actually benefit the Cali Rex a lot, specifically with Charizard and Venusaur, right? That kind of complements well, because you're able to break a lot of the things that you have trouble dealing with. So pretty much, like, you can use Charizard to blow through, like, Zation, which normally would give this pair a little bit of trouble. Even into Charizard, you can leverage stuff like Venusaur, and then you have Cali Rex, right? So it kind of works out nicely. I think it's an overall, like, good pair. I could see it doing well. The next counterpart too I want to talk about was Cali Rex Ogre. This one's gonna go in the C tier. Okay, maybe B tier, like low B. But like the reason why I wanted to put it in C tier is like I know it's got #1 on ladder, but I just don't think the pair is that great. It feels so linear. Like I feel like the build is always Kyogre, Calyrex, Amoonguss, Incin, Mimikyu, Electric type. You know what I mean? And like maybe you change out the Amoonguss for something else. It's just too linear. Like it's very easy to play around. I just feel like you're relying too much on your Calyrex for the offense, whereas like you need other modes on like most teams to like function, right? So it's just kind of rough. But yeah, I mean that's like my main thoughts on that particular pair. Like I said, I'm not gonna spend too much time on pairs I don't think are like that crazy. First pair I want to talk about that I think is like really, really good is actually going to be Cali Rex and Groudon. So pretty much like you have the combination of like Astro Barrage, special attack, trying to exert a bunch of pressure on the opponent, and then you have Precipice Blade, which is attacking on the other end of the obviously spectrum in terms of like damage. So pretty much you're able to split between like special and physical attacks, and like spread moves put on a lot of pressure. There's less wide guard in this format as well. And you can always Dynamax to like offset wide guard anyways, which is why we don't see it as much. So like you can exert a lot of pressure with these two. And like if you get yourself in the right position, like Astro Rust plus Astro Barrage plus Precipice Blaze, oh my god, like that's really hard to say. Can like exert a lot of pressure, right? And it can be really tough to swap into, which I think is like very legit. So I definitely see that as like a valid archetype, I think. Then as we go down, I'm going to keep scrolling until I see something I like. There's a bunch of Calyrex. Calyrex Ogre, I'm going to put in the B tier as well. So as I mentioned with like Groudon, right, like you get to hit on the physical spectrum. I feel like even with these Groudon Calyrex teams, you can run like Thundurus to offset like Yveltal, which would normally give it some issues. I feel like it's less comfortable to do that with Calyrex and Ogre, and like it's a lot easier to wall them both with the combined Snarl, whereas like even with Groudon and Calyrex, like you can't cover for both of them in one turn with like anything on Yveltal's moveset, right? So like even if they remove Thundurus, like the Groudon can still set up Swords Dances while Calyrex is clicking Astral Raj, or like Groudon can still go for physical moves, it's still like tough, you know? So I feel like this pair is just a little bit weaker to that Snarl spam that I mentioned, so like it makes it less good as a whole. But yeah, we're gonna continue down. Oh, I wanted to quickly touch on this and put in the F tier. So in Series 11, there was this team with Atranatus and Glastrier that did really well and won like a regional. Theoretically, I'm sure some people would just want to replace the Glastrier with the Calyrex. I feel like that team would have too much of a weakness to Calyrex Shadow, so I'm just gonna put in the F tier. Just to let you guys know, I don't think it's that great. I just don't like Atranatus that much to begin with, but it's like fine enough where like you can put it there, you know what I mean? So Continuing down, there aren't many other partners that I think would be good with Calyrex. The only one that's worth mentioning is Calyrex. Calyrex an odd one because I feel like I see it a decent bit. Like I put it in B tier just because they have such high damage output, right? But I don't necessarily think they're the best pair together. The one thing that is nice about Calyrex and Zation is that they do pressure Evaltol, right? So like for example, like Zation pressures Evaltol, and then Calyrex really pressures the other restricteds with a strong Astral Barrage. So they kind of complement each other in that way, where it's worth putting it in B tier. So that would be the one Pokemon I think is worth putting in B tier, right? As we continue down the list, you'll see we have some more fringe pairs. First off, we're going to put Dialga Groudon in the C tier. I think it is nice because Groudon is kind of weak to, like, Kyogre, so, like, Dialga obviously resists it. The problem is that, like, you're going to be relying on the partners as usual with Groudon teams, also because Dialga almost always wants the max. It's going to mean that you're really going to struggle to kind of find your max option on the team and, like, not want to bias towards like another Pokemon, right? But like it's decent enough as a pair where I feel like it could like have some success, right? Then we have Dialga Ogre. I actually think this one's better than Dialga and Groudon. This one actually works a little bit more because you kind of have that resist to Kyogre still. And you can also run coverage moves like Max Lightning to help with the opposing Ogre matchup. You can run stuff like Max Quake, right? And you can run like Dragon coverage, which lets Kyogre deal with Palkia, right? So you can even go for like a Max Wormwind and like snipe another Palkia. So like you have some options there, right? Like I feel like that's like decent enough where like it's worth listening. But yeah. So continuing down, after that, like there are no real other Dialga pairs I'd like to touch on. Atranatus, as I mentioned, kind of bad. Don't really even want to bring it up. I'm going to put Ho-Oh and Groudon in like the low C tier. The main reason why is just because theoretically they would be nice together, right? Like I think if you're going to use Ho-Oh, this is the way you would use Ho-Oh. I'm actually going to put an F on it. I'm like debating. I'm going to put it in like C. So basically, like, yes, in theory, it can abuse the sun, but then, like, when you play versus Kyogre, you're just really sad. And, like, yes, you have the option of, like, Venusaur, but still, like, it's just kind of, like, sad. And, like, why wouldn't you just use Charizard and then other restricted, right? Like, that's the main question. Like, obviously, Ho-Oh has some bulk, but it's very tough to justify. Okay, continuing down. So Double Weather. Double Weather I'm going to put in the B tier. I'm going to put it above Cali Rex Ogre. The main reason why I think, both Cali Rex Ogres, main reason I think why this can work, besides it's like very apparent like Venusaur weakness, is actually Double Weather is like pretty strong. And it's like one regional, or like not regionals, but like it's one events in Series 11, right? And I think that Double Weather actually offers like a really interesting combination with like Venusaur, and also to like they both work in Trick Room. So if you had like a really strong Trick Room team that could take advantage of both of them, like you could actually put in a lot of work, I think. So that's why I would want to like at least have them and be an honorable spot there. Nothing here, nothing here. Kieran Black's really bad. Sorry guys. All right, Kiram White Groudon. This is something. You can combine them for like a strong Fusion Flare, right? So you could have Fusion Flare Kiram with like Groudon, so that's like kind of cute. Also, too, Kiram like snipes a lot of the Kyogre teams in terms of just doing good, and like into Zation, like you at least have something that can like beat it, you know, pretty reliably, and like you're splitting that special and like physical coverage. I'd probably put this in like the high C tier, maybe B tier. The problem is like Kiram's just kind of a bad mon. Besides like, okay, so like if Zation wasn't everywhere, Kiram would be a lot better. But because Zation is everywhere, like Kiram is like kind of poopy, right? But yeah. Continuing here, nothing of note. Nothing of note. Kiram Kyogre is something that I'm going to at least have an honorable mention for as well. I feel like it's kind of around the same thing as Groudon. The only thing that I'm actually gonna put in the F tier. The reason why I think it's worse than Groudon is basically with Groudon you have like that kind of physical mon to counteract, and also you power up fire types that can beat things that Kiram doesn't like, even power up Kiram's fire moves. With Kyogre, even though you get Water Spout, if you play versus like a Zation Groudon, for example, like you're absolutely screwed. Like you're gonna get completely bodied, right? Especially if they have screens or something. Like it's so bad, and like I feel like even just any Zation team really has a lot of options to counteract this pair, if you leverage it correctly. So yeah. Continuing down, I mean, let's see, anything good here? Mostly Kiram White's pretty bad, so that's why you're not seeing me talk about it that much. All right, Lunala and Groudon. So this is a pair I actually think is really interesting. I would actually probably put it in the B tier, mostly because I think Lunala is actually really underrated. I think Lunadon actually has like a lot of synergy between it. I think that Lunala is incredibly underrated in the format. Calyrex isn't as common because it feels like there's a lot more like answers to it and hate for it, where like other restricteds might be better. So I think Lunala carves out its own kind of niche, specifically because it can like Trick Room next to like strong other restricted Pokemon that like appreciate the Trick Room, right? And like it matches up really well into like certain teams. Like for example, like Zation teams, like they don't really like dealing with Lunala because it just has the bulk to kind of like sit in front of those teams, right? If we go back to the Lunala tier, I also put Lunogre pretty high up as well. I actually think Lunogre is really strong. I'd actually probably put in the A tier. I know people haven't used it, but I actually think it's incredibly strong because you get the Trick Room and you get the Kyogre, and like Trick Room versus like a lot of teams is actually super strong. And if you build the archetype right, I feel like it could very well win like a huge event just because of like how good it is. And like you have a lot of partners that can like counter stuff like Yveltal as well. You know, obviously I used Tapu Koko in the previous tournament. I think Tapu Koko is picking up a little bit in usage, mostly because it completely counters Yveltal. So, you know, you have like a couple of options there to deal with like the kind of bad restricted matchups, I feel like. Going back to Lunala, there aren't any other real Lunala pairs I'd like to discuss. I'm kind of looking through to see if there's any. Yeah, I feel like you mostly just need the Weather Mons with it. So for the most part, like that would be the only thing. Duskmane's pretty bad. If you're gonna run Duskmane with anything, I think you pretty much have to run it with Kyogre. And even then, I'd put it in like the F tier. Like I just think Solgaleo is a better Pokemon this format. I just feel like Duskmane is like really garbage. Like in theory, it has a lot of bulk and like it can capitalize off of max. But then when you remember that Incineroar sits in front of it, parting shots it like 20 times, and it's super sad when it's -6. Like it's just not great, right? I just don't think it's that phenomenal of a choice. Looking through the other Duskmane options, there aren't too many that particularly stand out to me. I don't think Duskmane Groudon is worth it. You know, they're not really synergizing in a great way. So, Dawnwings, never use Dawnwings. That's all I'll say. There's literally no reason to use it over Lunala or, what's it called? Calyrex. Palkia pair. So Palkia is a little more interesting. I feel like Palkia has some potential. I'm going to put the Palkia and the Groudon in the F tier. I feel like they can be paired together, but it's just kind of like a why would you do that when like Kyogre exists? I feel like they're in one of those, like they're just so mediocre together. Like theoretically, like, oh yeah, I guess you can run Sun with Palkia, but like Palkia wants to go for water moves. Why would you do that? The only benefit is that it does resist Kyogre pretty well, which Groudon's pretty bad at dealing with, but I just feel like for the most part, like it's just not worth it for, you know, like it's like F just because I think it like can do something, but it's not that great. All right, Palkia Ogre, I'm gonna put a little bit higher. I still don't think Palkia plus like, you know, like the Weather Mons is that great of a choice, but I think it's a little bit better with Kyogre because you can power up its water moves. And it's like kind of cute, you know, like you can deal a bunch of damage. I think Dialga is better as a partner for it, so I'm actually gonna move up Dialga Ogre to B tier, and I'm gonna put Palkia and Ogre in C tier. You get powered up Hydro Pumps, but also too like I don't know. I just feel like Dialga does that job better, right? I mean, I guess you do get the benefit of like a really offensive water type, but I don't know. I just felt like overall Dialga does a bit better because like the typing actually is a bit unique, right? And they don't share like as many weaknesses, or not even weaknesses, but share as many like Pokemon that are kind of bleh against, you know. Down here, let's see. We went through all the Palkia archetypes except for Palkia-Zation. Let me see if I can find Palkia-Zation anywhere. I do kind of want to talk to them on a restricted by restricted basis because it's easier to organize. Oh my god, can you imagine running this pair? That'd be so dumb. Palkia-Zation. I'm just looking for Palkia. Oh, there we go. Palkia-Zation. Okay. So Palkia-Zation, I'm going to put in the B tier. I feel like they actually cover each other's weaknesses pretty decently. I also think that, like, it's not the worst pair ever because, like, you know, you can kind of do a lot with it. I feel like if you position it properly and use it properly, like, it could be fine. I don't think it's, like, an S or an A tier team. I just think it's, like, kind of middle of the pack, right? Like, it has some nice things about it. It does have some overlapping weaknesses. Like, opposing Zation, I feel like, with another partner can give you a lot of trouble. Especially with speed control and, like, if they're running play rough, like, it's pretty rough. So, pardon the pun, I guess. But, yeah, I feel like it just lands it in kind of, like, the middle of the pack, right? Going down, right? We just went over all the Palkias. Right, okay. Rayquaza. I'm gonna look for Rayquaza plus Zation because I feel like that's the only one that like really matters. As we continue down, I do see Reshiram Groudon. Reshiram Groudon, I'm gonna put in the B tier. I feel like in theory they could actually exert a lot of pressure next to each other because like it's kind of like the Ho-Oh effect, but like better. Reshiram hits really hard. It's a really strong Pokemon. It completely bodies Zation as well. I think the only issue you're gonna have with that pair is that sometimes it's gonna be a little redundant in terms of like, for example, you have no ground resist, so you kind of gonna have to rely on your partners to compensate for that. That being said, I do think like it's kind of a cool pair. Like it can actually do something. I think it's like one of Reshiram's only uses. All right, so down here, is there any other Reshiram pairs that I like before we continue? I'd consider Reshiram Zacian, but like I feel like that's further down, so we'll just get to that later. All right, so Solgaleo plus something next. I wouldn't really put Solgaleo with too many restricteds. I really just feel like Solgaleo plus Yveltal and Solgaleo plus Kyogre have a strong niche. I put Solgaleo and Kyogre in like the B tier. I think that it actually has a lot of decent options overall. By the way, B, I'm trying to kind of tier it in terms of how good I think each archetype matches up to each other. But obviously, like, there's gonna be some that are like ordered a little bit weird. Like, some I might think are better than the others. It's just a lot of Pokemon, right? Solgaleo has like strong max steel spikes, max quakes, like a lot of stuff that you can do. So I feel like it places itself a bit higher, mostly because it kind of works well off of Kyogre. You're able to hit on the physical end, you're able to hit on special end here, right? Kind of works out well. But yeah, right. And then we continue down. In terms of Solgaleo, the only other Solgaleo team I'd say is worth it is really Solgaleo Yveltal. I actually would place this in like the high B tier. I actually feel like this actually has a lot of decent matchups behind it. Because I feel like you want bulky steel plus Yveltal, or you want like something else relevant to it, like that would actually counteract each other. Because Solgaleo doesn't really like dealing with Groudon. You have Yveltal to offset that. Yveltal doesn't really like dealing with Zation. You have Solgaleo to offset that, and like you can have really strong partners like Gastrodon, which can really complement it. So it's just super cool. Continuing down. Sorry, I keep skipping past the Solgaleos. Solgaleo plus Zygarde, I will put in the F tier. It's usable, but like, why? You know what I mean? Maybe honestly, I think Groudon's worse than like Solgaleo Zygarde. Like, if you're gonna use Zygarde, this is probably the way you should use Zygarde. This is the only Zygarde team I'm really gonna put on like the entire tier list, I think. But Zygarde's just bad. Honestly, I really don't like Zygarde. I just don't think it's that great. Maybe later it'll like change and like it'll have a niche in the metagame, but it just feels like really underwhelming right now. So continuing, Solg. I think here Zerndon is the only one really worth talking about out of the bunch. I feel like Xerneas is a little underrated. And hear me out. I don't think it's very underrated. I just think it's a little underrated. Like, it can do something, right? So I'm going to put in a tentative B tier because I feel like it can actually do something. It just hasn't found its potential yet. Like, people haven't figured out what it's supposed to do yet. I think if they do, I think Zerndon could be, like, a decent B tier. And I literally think it's the only Xerneas archetype that's, like, relevant in this format, right? So, there you go. And then continuing down, Xerneas. Now, the fun ones. Yveltal archetypes. These are, like, my favorite, because Yveltal is my favorite Pokemon. To be fair, there are not going to be too many Yveltal archetypes to go through. Literally, Evildan is one of them. So, Evildan, after this weekend, ended up winning one tournament, and I got second place within another tournament. Now, obviously, with my own bias, I would love to put it into S. And also, too, I do think it's really strong. However, it is undeniable that you have a weakness to Kiram and Cali Rex Ice, and you can only really pick to deal with one. So you kind of have to pick and choose between both of them, and if you pull one of them, it's like an auto loss, which, that being said, like, they're not even that common where, like, it's that much of an issue, but, like, I think, like, the truly best archetypes can pretty much beat anything pretty consistently, right? I would actually, I don't know, I'm really torn, right? Like, I really think it's strong, actually. I really do think it's strong, and it's like a good archetype. I think, honestly, I would put Cali Rex and Groudon up here as well. I just think they're incredibly strong. Yeah, I'll keep this there for now. I do think that these two are very splashable next to Groudon, so they're like really strong as an archetype. Continuing down with the other Yveltal archetypes, unfortunately, Yveltal does not really have any other great partners, in my opinion, besides like Solgaleo, as I mentioned, right? So next up is going to be Zation Groudon. So Zation Groudon's a really interesting one. I definitely put in the A tier. I feel like the Sun partners plus Zation is actually pretty cool. Lets you do a Kyogre, and also too, you have a strong steel type that can pressure a lot of different things that Groudon doesn't necessarily like, including Cali Rex, right? Kind of works out well. I think these two just complement each other really well. You have Charizard, Venusaur combined with these that can put in a lot of pressure. You have Incineroar, which just works great with those, and Sun, so yeah, nothing too complex there, I feel like. Continue down. Zation. I feel like the Zation archetypes have like the most thing. Okay, Swordfish. Swordfish is easy S tier. I mean, if you look at just cuts recently, like I think it was like 5 out of 8 teams in like the Latin America like top cut or like Iron Nemesis tournament top cut that I was playing in, and also too, it was in like a lot of the top cut teams for the USBA tournament. Like it's just good, you know what I mean? Like Swordfish is just good. Like the two restricteds complement each other really well. Kyogre is a good restricted. It's very splashable, right? Like you can kind of put it on like any team. So it doesn't particularly surprise me to see them doing that great. But yeah. Okay, continuing down the list. So, next up that I wanted to talk about was Zation Kiram. In theory, this could be really cool. I'm gonna put it in low B just because I'm like still a little I'm actually gonna put it in high C. I'm a little unconvinced, mostly because theoretically, while Kiram covers everything Zation covers, I mean, you know what? I'll put in B. I'll put in B. They like Kiram does cover a lot of things that Zacian doesn't like, right? Like for example, Groudon, it destroys. It can really destroy Sun. It can do a lot of work into those teams, and Zacian can really deal with the things that Kiram doesn't like, including opposing Zacian. And you could do some other stuff with it. So I'm gonna leave it in that tier. I don't think it's as bad as like Kiram Groudon, so I don't think it's worth like putting in the same tier, right? So looking through the rest of Zacian archetypes, I only see maybe one more that I would look at. Zacian Rayquaza. I thought Rayquaza was gonna be really bad, but I actually think it works okay next to Zacian. Like I'd put in like low C, but like it can also be like kind of B. Like I could actually see it like winning something. You know what I mean? The special Rayquaza set plus Zacian actually like kind of plays off of each other really well. And considering there's so much weather, Zacian actually really appreciates like airlock. I was kind of surprised by that. So I'm actually gonna leave in B tier. I feel like it's like okay. It's kind of cool. I could see it like doing really well in the future. I just think it needs to make sure it has like a good like Trick Room and like Cali Rex match. Okay, continuing down, right? Through the Zacian archetypes. Is there anything else that I would particularly see decent? I think Zacian and Reshiram has like a little bit of a niche. I'd probably put in like C tier. Maybe B. It's like okay. I think that it struggles a little bit versus like obviously Groudon if like it can get in the position of the Max Quake, right? Especially in like Trick Room. So like that's obviously gonna be points off for it, I think. But yeah. Then we have Zation Yveltal. This pair is actually really good, I think, in terms of like its defensive role. I'm gonna put in the A tier mostly because I feel like these two restricteds are like really good because like you can let your partners max and just focus on your restricteds like kind of going crazy. I'm gonna put Solgaleo Yveltal higher than Zation Yveltal, which seems like a little crazy, but like I've played with both and like honestly I think Solgaleo gives it a bit better options. But I think they're both good. I think that people are really sleeping on Solgaleo Yveltal right now. I think it might actually work a little bit better than Zacian Yveltal, but, you know, obviously we'll have to see how the meta progresses. This is my personal take on it. Continuing down, is there anything else? Zacian Zygarde, I lied when I said there was only one Zygarde team I'm going to put in here, but this is for sure the last Zygarde team. Did I just lose it? No, I didn't. Okay, cool. So Zation Zygarde, I'm gonna put in like the C tier, I think, probably next to Solgaleo and Zygarde. They kind of both do similar things, but I just think they're both kind of bad. Like, I just don't think Zygarde's that great of a mon. Like, call me a Zygarde hater. After I used it, like, it just felt so bad. Like, I just hated using it. I just really don't think it's that great. But yeah, anyways, and then as we continue here, I mean, you can see some other like stuff like Zacian Zekrom in theory would be cute, but it's just kind of you know. I'm gonna continue until I see something that I think is like actually pretty legit. Not many of those, honestly. Sorry, like I don't know if you guys expected me to rank all these, but like I really just don't even want to rank ones and like make you guys think that ones like I'm ranking are semi-viable. Like straight up, like the ones I ranked are the only ones I think are viable. Yeah, straight up, like the rest of these are really bad. Yeah, so these are like the only pairs I think are like actually pretty playable, right? I even full screen this so you guys can like see it uninterrupted. So yeah, I mean, this is probably my tier list. I would consider putting Evil Dawn maybe even like down here or like Cali Rex Shadow down there. I'm debating. No, I think Evil Dawn like deserves its spot up there considering its performances in the past like week, right? That might change a little bit, but I really do think like these are the overall best archetypes, right? Like sorry that we're not rating the full thing, but I would literally go crazy if I had to like rate any more of them. Like I don't have the mental capacity to go through all these different pairs and like for example, like look at this pair and be like, "Oh yeah, like actually I think this top ladder, I almost forgot about one. This top ladder, I'm not too convinced about it, but I will put it here. But like yeah, straight up like oh man, like some of these pairs are mega bad. Like the ones I didn't even rate, I didn't rate them for my own sanity. But yeah. Guys, thank you for the support on the videos. Sorry I didn't rate all of them, but like I did not want to like sit here and rate every single restricted pair because I feel like that would just be like not a good video. I wanted to rate the ones that I thought were relevant. Like these are the ones that I think should be seeing play. Like all of these restricted pairs, I think they have some kind of niche. Everything else is bad, in my opinion. And you shouldn't even like touch them. But I mean, I guess I'd love to be proven wrong if like any of the other ones can do well. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty much my pair tier list. I would maybe consider even this moving down here, to be honest. Yeah, I'm gonna actually move what's it called? Cali Rex Shadow down here. So this would be my list. Yeah. Quick review. I mean, Swordfish pretty much splashable everywhere. Evil Dawn, I mean, it just got second and first place, so that's why I'm putting it there for now. Lunogre, I think is slept on, has a lot of potential, especially into all these Swordfish teams. Lunadon, or not Lunadon, Calyrex Shadow Groudon is like really cool. Same with like, you know, obviously Calyrex, or not Calyrex, Groudon and Zation, and then obviously Solgaleo Yveltal I think is a little bit better than Zation Yveltal. I'm gonna actually maybe put them on the same tier. I feel like they're like kind of interchangeable, but I feel like Solgaleo is a little bit better in my opinion. From like my personal like play. Then all these tiers, I think like this is like solid. Like you can play these and like you'll probably do well if you're good. C is like I feel like these are very specific or only have like one or two like decent builds. And then like F is like okay maybe like one good build, but like it's kind of like average and like you're probably putting yourself at a disadvantage. Just not as much of a disadvantage as like another bad pair. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me, guys. That's more so what I think about all these pairs. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. God, it feels so good to have this video done after trying to do it like 6 times, 5 times, whatever. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to support me on Patreon, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much, guys, and peace.